What's up, YouTube? This week, before we get started on this week's news-related event and your B-movie reviews, I wanted to thank Kowalski's, I think I'm pronouncing that right, Left Nut, Kowalski's Left Nut, for leaving my very first comment. I've done almost 30 videos. I finally get a comment. Anyone who is a YouTuber, you know, kind of gets this, you know, how hard it is to get people involved in your channel at the beginning. Now, even though it was kind of a mean comment, you know, I still thanks Left Nut for leaving a comment. You were my first comment. That was pretty cool. I finally got one. I've gotten several views, and I even got like a couple of subscribers, but still, starting out, it just seems ridiculously slow trying to get people to check out my channel. I didn't do anything really special. I just do reviews on, you know, old movies that most people haven't seen, and I discuss related news topics of what's going on today. But hopefully eventually, you know, I'll get a lot more people checking out my channel. But again, Left Nut, I want to thank you. I'm guessing he's black. I did a couple weeks ago, I did a video about Jordan Peele and his racist comments towards white people. You know, and Left Nut kind of left me a comment saying, you know, when you make slaves of black people, they're not going to be very nice to you. And I'm like, first of all, that hasn't happened in hundreds of years. Nobody makes black people slaves today. And two, Jordan Peele certainly was no black slave. You know, he was never a slave. He was born with a silver spoon in his mouth. He never had it hard. So for him to just make a racist comment like that is really hateful, and there's no reason to be hateful. And I kind of, you know, I don't care what color you are. I absolutely can't stand people who are racist, period. There's no reason to hate on somebody because of the color of their skin. That's just dumb, and it shows their ignorance. You know, just because your ancestors were once slaves, you know, it doesn't mean you get a free pass, you know, and be able to do whatever you want and be able to be racist against other races. That's just dumb. You know, just because, you know, I'm half Irish and I'm half Native American. You know, so my ancestors were Irish and Cherokee Indians, or Native Americans. Does that mean, you know, the British once had Irish as slaves? Does that mean I should hate every single British person today because they once had my ancestors as slaves? No, that's stupid. Same thing with Native Americans. Should I hate every white person and every, you know, African American, or I hate that, it's just black American. Should I hate every black American because they once tried to commit genocide on my ancestors? No, I'm not going to hate all blacks and hate all white people, you know, just, you know, that's something that happened hundreds of years ago. It doesn't give me a free pass to hate on other races. Uh, and I hate that mentality from black people. You know, they think they get a free pass because, you know, some, not all white people, you know, once owned slaves in America. Well, if you look up the history, you find out that it was blacks who made black slaves. They were the slave trader. Your own people made slaves of your people and then brought them to America and sold them off to white people. So, you know, I don't know. It's ignorant to me. But anyways, enough of that. Which brings me on to the news. You know, nothing major's going on this week. You know, you have the left trying to get rid of Trump still, make it outlandish crap, trying to get rid of him, which isn't obviously going to happen. He's probably going to be in another 4 years, which is fine, you know, whatever. But one story did catch my eye that happened this week. Apparently it's not okay to go to Worlds of Fun in Kansas City, Missouri anymore, especially at night. There was a brawl of like 300, supposedly 300 teenagers. Most of them were practically all black. They were trying to beat on cops and crap like that. I don't know. They had to bring in a ton of cops to get it to stop, break it up. And a lot of people are saying, well, we're you know, they're a bunch of teenagers, you know, and I understand that, you know, kids sometimes get into it, you know, just like adults do. But, you know, they were running wild and whatever. But, you know, I saw some comments saying, you know, where was the adult supervision? Why wasn't there any adults with them and blah, blah, blah. Well, you know, back in the day, when I was a teenager, you know, my friends and I, you know, we'd go to an amusement park or the theater and we got dropped off by our parents. You know, well, you know, granted, we didn't act like that. There wasn't ever a huge fight or anything like that going on. And, you know, but to sit there and say, you know, their parental supervision wasn't there, you know, that's just dumb because, you know, parents have been doing that for years, you know, dropping off their kids and leaving them at an amusement park or something like that, you know, on their own cognizance. So I just thought that comment was kind of stupid. And then, you know, you had all your racial comments saying, you know, well, that's 13% for you and blah, 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 you know. Well, granted, you know, not all black people are like that, you know. You know, just like not all white people are like that either or something, you know. You know, you can't contribute that to the entire single race. I don't care who you are. Yes, the majority is like that. I'm sorry, but it is the ugly truth. You can, you know, statistically, it's a known fact that, you know, the vast majority of the black community commit most of the crimes in the United States. They tend to break the law the most, and they're more violent than the other races, Native Americans, Asians, you know, Latinos, and whites. They're usually committing the most crimes. Everyone knows that. But that doesn't mean that every single one of them are bad. You have bad apples in any race there is, you know. There's some bad apples, you know, with white people. There's bad apples within the Asian community, and the same thing with Latino, you know. You know, like MS-13, you know, you have bad apples in any race. Not all the entire race. You can't blame the entire race for some portion of that race does. But But I can kind of relate to this. Back in the day when I was younger, I wasn't ever a really big drinker, but a lot of my friends were. And so I was designated driver whenever they wanted to go to a club or something. And this is just a known fact. Everybody knows this too. It's not like I'm trying to attack blacks or anything like that. But when you go to a dance club in a big city, we'd go early. We'd go around 7 or 8, and we'd stay till like midnight for a few hours. And then we would leave. Once midnight came about, everyone left that was not black. Why? Because there were the clubs would be flooded with black people. Time and time again. It happened every night. Black people would just flood the clubs. And most of your black people, they live in the inner city. They don't live in rural country areas most of the time. They live in the inner city. That's just the way it is. Anyways, these clubs would get packed full of black people. And you're in there like canned sardines. You're bumping and brushing up against people just trying to walk in there. Black people, though, for some reason, they would get ugly. They would get violent about it. If you brushed up against them or bumped them, like it's some territory thing. You're invading their space. But they were doing the same thing. But it didn't matter. They were, I don't know. They would just get violent for some reason. And 90% of the time, when the cops were called out there, it's because there was some big brawl or fight going on between black people. And it happened all the time, every night. You'd see clubs close and then new ones open up, and it happening all over again, and then close and open up, and it's just a repeating process. So that's an ugly truth. It happens, especially when you get a large group of black people together. For some reason, they cannot hang out together. They will end up fighting for some reason. But you can't put that on the entire black race. It's just freaking retarded. You can't do that. And there's tons of different reasons why it happens. They just have a different mentality set. Especially when their parents have grown up to be thugs as well. That's just the way it is. It just seems to trickle down, in the black community. They're all, not all of them, but a lot of them are just grown up as thugs, and then it trickles down to their own children, and their children become thugs, and such, so on. It's a never-ending cycle. So anyways, I saw that story. I just thought how ignorant it was, how stupid it was. I don't know. If you break the law, you're going to get punished. You can't break the law. I don't care if you don't like authority figures like the police or something. And not all police are good police officers, granted, but the majority of them are just trying to do their job. So to hate on all police officers for doing their job is wrong too. If you don't listen, you don't do what the police officer tells you to do, and you break the law, you're going to get in trouble. You're going to get punished. Plain and simple. Don't break the law, and it won't happen. Alright, moving on. Let's get to our movie reviews. This week, I am going to go over the original Planet of the Apes movie series. Not the one that was just recently done. I'm talking about all the way back to 1968. The first 5 that were done. Yes, there was 5 of them. It started off with Planet of the Apes, and it had Charlton Heston playing as Taylor, and Rodney McDowall, which is a British actor. He was playing Cornelius, the ape scientist or archaeologist. It made about 33 million domestically, which is in the United States. So it did really, really well for back then. Um, Basically, it was a story of three scientists, or it's astronauts, sorry, not scientists, three astronauts who went into space and hit some type of time warp or something and sent them, flung them into the future. And they crash land in the water on this planet, and their ship sinks, and they got to figure out a way to survive. And they start walking across the desert, but they think they're on an alien planet. So they're trying to figure out how they're going to survive. So traveling this desert, they run across some humans. Humans can't speak. They're like animals. The apes show up and capture a bunch of them, kill one of the astronauts. Taylor gets in a fight and his throat's hurt, so he can't speak at first, so they think he's like one of the other humans. He understands the apes, and he finally catches the eye of a female scientist or ape, and she realizes he's intelligent. Her and her husband, Cornelius, that's where Cornelius comes in, they help him escape with one of the female or humans, and one of the they have a caste system. The chimpanzees are like science, and then the orangutans are the law and religious caste, and then the gorillas are the military caste. One of the orangutans, he knows that humans once ruled over apes. And it was the other way around. Apes couldn't speak and humans could. So he's scared to death when he finds out that Taylor can speak. So he wants to get rid of him, kill him. Eventually, though, Taylor convinces him to let him go, because he tells him he's heading for the Forbidden Zone. This is an area that none of the apes go to because, according to the orangutan, that's where all the war happened between apes and humans, and there's like cities there from long ago from the humans, and that's why apes are not allowed there. So that's where he leaves everybody and he takes off to the Forbidden area. Now, it leads off with the most famous scene, one of the most famous scenes in movie history, where it shows half the Statue of Liberty and Charlton Heston on the beach, you know, saying, you know, I can't believe they blew up the Earth, blah, blah, blah. That's when he realizes he's on Earth and not an alien planet. The next one picks off from there in 1970. It made about 18 million domestically, so it didn't do too bad. In this one, you know, basically Taylor's only in it for a couple scenes. They bring another guy in, and Roddy McDowall, they had somebody else play his character because he was doing some type of British movie at the time. But they bring in a guy, and this guy's name is Brent. He followed the same trajectory as Taylor did as an astronaut. He ends up being flung into the future too. He's supposed to be part of a rescue team. There was another one with him, but he dies. Another astronaut, he dies. At the beginning of the movie, they show Taylor. He sees some weird things. As I was saying, Taylor sees some weird things in the Forbidden Zone, and then he disappears, and the slave girl, or the human girl that was with him, she heads back to Ape City because Taylor told her to find Zira, the ape scientist, female scientist that helped him. as she is heading back to Ape City, she runs across Brent, and she takes Brent to Zira and Cornelius, and they help him out by telling him where Taylor went. So he goes to look for Taylor in the Forbidden Zone. Well, the gorillas know that something's going on in the Forbidden Zone, or the apes do. All the apes actually do. Strange things have been happening, and they know that somebody's still living in the underground city, so they go to the Forbidden Zone to find out who it is and to get rid of him. Brent ends up finding an underground city in the Forbidden Zone, and it's full of mutants, and they worship an a nuclear bomb as a god, and they have strange mind powers. He finds Taylor as a prisoner. They escape. The gorillas come, or the apes come, and they kill everybody in the city. And with Taylor's last dying breath, he pushes the button to set off the nuclear bomb and supposedly blows up the entire planet. Excuse me. Which leads to the next installment, which is Escape from the Planet of the Apes, and it was done in 1971. Made about $12 million domestically. So now we're steadily dropping off money-wise. And his last three I wasn't a real big fan of. In Escape, the director got kind of lazy, and he filmed most of the movie, practically the entire movie, in like modern times. Basically, Cornelius, Zira, and some other ape, they fixed up Taylor's ship, drug it out of the water, fixed up his ship, and then took off in it, and before Earth blew up, and they ended up in the same time warp or whatever, but instead of going future, they go into the past. Now, at the same time, they supposedly brought some type of virus with them that kills off, eventually, not at this point in time, but eventually it kills off all the dogs and cats of the earth. The other chimpanzee scientist that came with him, he gets it killed off fairly early in the movie. So it's mainly just Cornelius and Zira. The public loves him, but the head of secret intelligence or security or whatever, he wants to kill him. He eventually uses a truth serum, finds out what really happened, why they're there, and finds out that Zira is pregnant. So he wants to kill them all. The president just wants to kill the child because they're afraid if intelligent monkeys or apes begin spreading across the earth, they're going to eventually dominate man. But they eventually kill them all off, but Zira and Cornelius meet this circus guy who has chimpanzees, and she swaps out her baby for the baby, the chimpanzee, in the circus. So they don't kill the right baby. Which leads to the next installment, which is Conquest of the Planet of the Apes. Done in 1972 and made about $9 million. So again, it dropped. Money-wise, it dropped again. In this one, a long story short, uh, apes, people with the loss of dogs and cats, they begin making apes pets, and they eventually say, hey, why don't we just try to domesticate them and kind of turn them into slaves? They could do all the labor for us. So they're basically, most of the movie shot in this training facility to teach apes how to do chores and stuff, and they kind of treated like slaves. You see that Caesar's grown up with the circus guy as his guardian, but the guardian gets killed, and Caesar blends in with escapes by blending in with the rest of the apes being trained or taught at this center to be domesticated. Well, he turns it all around and he starts a revolt and he takes over the facility, and at the end, that's, you know, what happens. It leads to them probably going to war. So he starts a revolution. Then the next installment is Battle for the Planet of the Apes, which was done in '73. It only made about 8 million domestically, and this one was supposed to be after a big nuclear war between apes and man. Apes are living with humans, but they're not their equals. He's kind of keeping an eye on him, kind of got his thumb on Caesar's got his thumb on him, and he's men kill men type of thing, so he's got to keep an eye on him type of thing. But they're living together in this type of camp or some crap. This black guy tells Caesar that he can see and hear and figure out what happened to his parents and what's going to happen in the future by some type of videotape that's kept in some archives in the cities, blown up city. So they go to the city ruins. They find out there's still some humans alive, kind of radiation sickness or whatever going on. But they see the tapes, and he gets to find out about what happens in the future and blah blah blah. So they go back to the camp. The humans follow them. They get in a big fight, kill most of the humans. The humans take off back to what's left. Take off back to the city. At this time, there's also a guerrilla general who doesn't see it Caesar's way. He thinks that all humans should be killed. He ends up actually killing Caesar's son, and then Caesar finds out and then kills him, because he broke the most sacred law, which is ape doesn't kill ape. And Caesar realizes that apes are more like men, and that eventually there's not going to be a future for either one, and that's the end of the movie. But then you also have a remake of it in 2001, directed by Tim Burton. It had Mark Wahlberg in it, and it's basically a retelling of the original. Mark Wahlberg finds a time anomaly in space and ends up getting flung in the future. But the humans can speak in this one. They're just more oppressed and treated like slaves. They're not dumb animals like the original was. Mark Wahlberg, he finds what happened to the space station he was working from, and that the apes from that space station, one of them went crazy and kind of took over everything, and that's how apes became masters of the planet. Anyways, he eventually gets in a new spacecraft with the promise of them saying they're going to work things out between humans and apes, and he takes off, and instead of going back in time, he goes even further in the future. At the very end of the movie, apes have pretty much built everything man has. He's like like Washington D.C., and he realized that he was lied to, and the apes basically took over. The very first two movies were really good. I liked the very first two movies because it was done in the future. It was a future setting. And the acting was really good. Of course, the graphics ain't going to be all that great. The only thing I didn't like about the second one was, you know, them blowing up the whole entire planet. That was just dumb. I thought that was kind of ignorant. The last three movies were just horrible. It was real hard to get through them. I understood that they were trying to go through a timeline, but it was just a dumb timeline, and it made no sense. It wasn't anything to do really with the acting, but a lot of the stuff, you know, them being domesticated and all that crap, that was just dumb. And then, you know, the 2001 version of Tim Burton and Mark Wahlberg, I thought it wasn't bad. It was actually a pretty good movie. It was cool. I didn't understand why they did more on that than remaking the entire thing again. But I like the new ones too. But I thought the Mark Wahlberg and Tim Burton one wasn't that bad either. For the most part, most of them were pretty good. Escape, Conquest, and Battle wasn't really all that great. You could probably skip them, not even watch them, and you'd be just fine. But as far as early sci-fi, you know, there's a lot. The Planet of the Apes has influenced a lot of stuff, including comics. You know, I know in the 80s they did a thing where Grodd or whatever was actually came from a planet of apes, and they crash landed on Earth and blah blah blah. So, you know, and then you had like some cartoon series. You even had like in the 75, 78, I think there was also a series called Planet of the Apes, television series. So it's had a lot of influence on a lot of sci-fi. It's a crazy story, but very entertaining. And, you know, I definitely recommend the first two, but those last three I wouldn't even bother unless you just really want to know what's going on. It's a lot. It's really drawn out. Anyway, if that's your type of thing, go for it. As before, like I always say, if you have, you know, a type of movie you want me to review, leave it in the comments below. I might have missed something that I don't know, a type of movie I've never heard of or know about that was actually like a golden gem. I'm always looking for stuff like that. But anyways, I told you I'd tell you the truth, and you've just been told.